they no longer need fuel for their ships. Mm-hmm. And that by the end of this decade, all their ships will be powered by seawater.
Yeah,
so they do have it. They've cracked H2O in a way that's hyper efficient, so they'll never need to refuel. This is a quiet little announcement that was made about a year ago.
Yeah, about a year. Yeah. Yep. And
there you have it.
Exactly.
It's here.
To add on that, like you're saying, Andrew, it's those concepts, like you're saying, of the military industrialized, the complex of this nature. It is not it's not too far out to say that they are about 50 or even 70 years ahead of the curve of developing technologies, and that is not too actually out there of a number, quite honestly. And what this means is that if we actually look at ourselves, like we're talking here of if this technology was given to the masses, not to just the people in this room, but to people, let's say, who have to work a 9 to 5 job, then go do another job, and then get home to see their kids, but not have time to even see their kids, and they're just always in this constant wreck, like you're saying, with our economy, this more or less, we're becoming more and more again into this enslavement to debt. And it's important to see that it's always a two-way street of the military industrialized complex most likely has these technologies, as Andrew brought up again. These technologies are developed, and they're not in public domain for multiple reasons. And it's one of which, like you're saying, it's if that was brought in, capitalism and the dollar itself would change completely.
God forbid.
And then the other thing is to make sure that it's understood of if the masses, everybody, not just everybody in this room who maybe is asking themselves questions and has time to read certain esoteric concepts and things of this nature, but everybody who is still in this mentality that there's nothing that they can do, if one is to give someone a tool without educating or more or less navigating them of how to utilize this tool, those tools can actually hurt themselves. So it's important to see of how we have to acknowledge our own responsibilities when we develop these things and these concepts, to make sure that we actually walk with each other in these, and we just don't unload a whole bunch of information or technology and then walk away thinking that, oh, they'll figure it out. And that's why one of the things, like you're saying with the military, I believe that there is a very strong thing if they have a strong feeling of that we are not ready for this technology. And I think it's important to acknowledge the reality of where we're at in this state and the acknowledgement that there is a lot of suffering that is occurring. And
so let's
a lot of it is, it's proven wrong.
Prove them wrong.
Exactly.
Let's get the show on the road, folks.
Exactly. So it's important that we come together and we help each other out and we listen to each other and we do our best to support each other rather than pull each other down, as the analogy is a bucket full of crabs.
Right.
Get another question.
Another question.
Last question.
Well, there's two more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just recently saw on the internet something released by Rice University called Tesla-phoresis. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is Tesla-phoresis part of your research?
Okay, actually, it's funny you bring that up. Anybody who doesn't know what this is, they basically applied a Tesla coil and they had a box that had carbon in it. And by applying high voltage AC fields near carbon, a self-organization process was observed where carbon nanotubes were self-aligned. Now, these carbon nanotubes did not stay, but it shows that when the AC field was applied, that this self-organization principle was seen. And that if we had the right technology, more or less, to have AC fields to align these carbon nanotubes, and then the right external fields of temperature and pressure, we could compress them and keep them in that field, remove the AC, but then the nanotubes will stay. What's interesting about the morphogenic field, for instance, is that the lab I work at, 2 weeks before that came out, we were doing the exact similar things, but we didn't have the electron microscope to actually observe the nanotubes. Yet we have a lot of data, videos, images, and with our current crude analytical devices that we had, but we have the proper drivers, power supplies, etc. to generate those. We were observing these spontaneous alignment of carbon tubes, and there's some very interesting things that come out with the electrode shapes, the type of materials, and the types of voltages, whether it's just AC or it's AC and DC, or if it's multiple types of things. If we look at nature, there's an infinite amount of combinations we can do. So with that, I think it's interesting you brought that up, because for myself, I thought it was just another example of how the morphogenetic field works, where for ourselves, we were doing the experiment in the lab, and then we were like, wow, this is really interesting, okay, because we work with carbon where I work, and we were just realizing, okay, there's this self-organization, these look like carbon nanotubes, but we can't prove it. 2 weeks later, this paper comes out, and we go, well, we don't have to spend the money anymore to go get it analyzed, we know it works.
One of the discoveries of Russian scientists looking into torsion fields, which is probably the best work being done on the planet, is in Russia, on torsion, which are basically fields that arise from the force of rotation. They found that the crystallization of aluminum under the influence of a torsion field would generate strengths analogous to alloy strength in pure aluminum. So without having to add additional materials to the aluminum, as long as you applied this torsion field to it during its crystallization phase, it would be as strong as an alloy. So materials science and all other areas of science, including electrical switching and even biological healing and all manner of things, will be influenced by the advent of these new technologies and these new understandings. And the rudiments of this work have been done 20, 30 years ago or longer. Tesla was how many years ago? 60 or 70 or?
That's 100,
100
That's 100, bro.
100 years ago. So I don't have much else to say about that, except that if there were an encyclopedia of new energy, it would be pretty thick by now. Maybe that's one of the things we ought to be dedicated to publishing, is a compendium of all. And in fact, there used to be an organization known as the Borderland Sciences Research Foundation who did this work, and that library is still somewhere around. Yes, in Garberville or someplace like that, but it's currently kind of like in storage. And who is the caretaker or curator? And it's being sold off.
Oh.
So
let's make sure that doesn't happen.
it's like our knowledge of this field is sacred and not being curated in the way that it probably should be. And that's another probably essential mission of New Energy Movement. Please, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name's Warren Linney, and I'm part of a clean energy meetup in San Rafael. In fact, we're meeting this next Monday. You just go to meetup.com, and you'll see us on there, San Rafael Clean Energy Meetup.
Cool.
And then we're going to have a public event on May 14th in San Rafael. So welcome you all to come. We've got some flyers here, but my question to the panel is, what we're trying to do is create an ecosystem around inventors. So help giving them the financial, legal help, marketing, and so forth. Perfect. And I'm wondering if there's any other groups that you know of that are angel funds that are doing vetting and so forth. Maybe Roland, I'm not sure if we can team up with what you're doing, but we're having trouble finding any other angel funds. You know, I'm part of North Bay Angels
Right.
and Santa Rosa, and we can't seem to find any, because we don't want to reinvent this. We want to just partner with other groups.
Greenstreamfinance.com, I've heard, may very well be interested in these kinds of things. Greenstreamfinance.com. Co-developer of New Energy Movement's website, Stas Rutkowski, told me about them. But I cannot say that I know of too many others
At this point.
at this point.
There are not too many people who I as well know who right off the bat will say, oh, I have this money and I will invest it, without the third-party verification. And that's where I don't know if Roland, you heard that too well, but to reiterate, a gentleman here is asking a question of do you know of too many people, or how many people, or how to get angel funding? Was that the question of you're asking for information?
Yeah, how to be in contact with other
partner
angel
with another
funds that are.
There is one other group.
Okay, beautiful.
The Thrive Movement founded by Kimberly and Foster Gamble. You might have a hard time getting their attention, as they're currently working with like over 100 groups. And I'm sure they had to choose those 100 out of 1,000 that they were approached by, because their movie Thrive has been seen by 80 million people or something. But yeah, Foster Gamble is dedicated to the rollout of a new energy future. And if you really do have people with something worth its salt, then I would suggest contacting the Thrive movement about this.
And another thing I'd recommend is still going the traditional way of grants, quite honestly. I've not yet learned how to write grants myself, but I know people who are interested in writing grants, and we're working together and just building more and more relationship to do so. Yet to do that efficiently, of course, you need to have third-party verification of these concepts.
And you
So
can't
that's why
say you're violating the second law, or they'll
you can't
probably
say.
throw
They'll
it
probably
out the
throw it
window.
out the windows. Exactly. So with these now, there are third-party verifications, let's say, of the low-energy nuclear reaction, which totally changes that. So now we're in a new realm where we can finally prove that the second law of thermodynamics is not correct. And what that means is that we can start to actually tap into those sources potentially, yet we have to come together, and it'd be interesting to link up.
What that means is we live in an open system. The second law of thermodynamics talks about closed systems having to conserve energy, but who's living in a closed system? I'm not.
So Roland, do you have input on this?
Yeah, I do. So looking to fund inventors' inventions and actually funding it is, something I've been successful at with our company, Global Emergent Technologies. And there is no predetermined path to find the right type of investor. It's really a combination of setting up the third-party testing and validation of the technologies in order for there to be a clear, obvious path to commercialization, because that's what investors look for. Unless you have a philanthropist, but that's not something that just falls out of the tree every day. And so, we do have some investors that have invested in some of the technologies that we're developing. Always need more, but it's a path of proving that out. So if you have inventors that have novel technologies, reach out to the new energy movement. It's a good start, and or our website, discoverget.com. And if it's novel enough, validated enough, you can. For example, I would go and carry around the crystal cell with an LED light. Every single meeting I ever had, I would carry it for breakfast, for lunch. I'd carry it, put it on the table at dinner when I was out. I'd take it out to the bar at night. I was always championing and cheerleading the technology, no matter where I was at. And I was educating everybody I came into contact with. And that's the type of, go get them atmosphere and attitude you have to create in order to create a buzz around this stuff. And luckily that worked for that particular technology, and it's on its way now. But I don't, ideally there may be groups set up in the near future that will fund exotic technologies that show merit, and hopefully that'll come.
And Roland, if you'd be kind enough to also mention the upcoming conference that's coming up in Southern California of another place where people can.
What's it called?
Yes, there's a conference coming up in San Diego that is, let me actually bring up, I think on my screen, if my screen is still sharing there, let me see here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. Conference, let's see, share screen. Basically, this is, the conference is called Limits to the Second Law of Thermodynamics, and that's a gentleman that works in the Department of Physics and Biophysics, University of San Diego. We'll be holding that 2-day program. It's currently scheduled for Thursday and Friday, June 16th and 17th. It's going to be talking about experimental results in many labs that have found out quantum level specifically, that the second law of thermodynamics does not apply, that we are living, as Andrew Mount said, in an open system, and we have to start to acknowledge the other energies in that system.
Apparently, we're losing the bandwidth again.
Yeah, Roland, we're losing the bandwidth again. It seems like when we do the screen share, that's what happens.
Post the URL up there. We're going to take one more question.
Well, and just one other thing, there's a conference at the end of May in Austin, Texas for Breakthrough Energy Movement, and there's going to be a very large grassroots crowdfunding campaign launched for these very initiatives. And there's also going to be obviously a number of different inventors, presenters, some potentially presenting, some different devices as well. So again, potentially, but I would check the internet for that, Breakthrough Energy Movement at the end of May in Austin, Texas. And one more question.
Tesla Tech in Albuquerque, too.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
Tesla
coming
Tech
up.
in Albuquerque. Thank you very much. What month is that?
It's July 27th through 30th.
Thank you.
Albuquerque.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I'm really interested in your comments, particularly about grassroots groups and the power of these networks, because partly connected to what this lady was talking about, traditional structures may not be the structures that get us there. And it's really groups of people that fund projects, not necessarily dollars, right? Even dollars come from groups of people creating energy and channeling it towards priorities. So I just wanted to speak to that and this power of the group, of the grassroots. I want to ask you guys what you see out there that's actually organizing people. I wanted to point out that probably right here in this audience, there's a huge amount of skill and potential. I wanted to ask, how many of you guys are actually part of something, part of collaborating with others around this topic, like part of a working group or part of a community group or part of a laboratory, and encourage people to do that. Like I am part of a grassroots group. Actually, I'm part of the same meetup that Warren is. And it's people actually getting involved with whatever your talents are and coming together in organized ways and channeling that group energy towards priorities that makes things happen. So we shouldn't just think about if something could get funded by a wealthy person, then it could happen. It's really groups of people that create the wealth to begin with. So what are you seeing that's out there that's allowing people to harness that group energy, and focus it towards collective priorities?
So one thing that I thought was a very interesting movement that I was a part of for a wee bit of time, which was the Occupy Wall Street movement, was a very interesting grassroots movement that took place where a lot of money was raised and a lot of re-education occurred. And it was quite fantastic, actually, to be a part of the new methods of how to communicate with the public and what that went to. And I thought that movement was going to continue, quite honestly. A lot of information was shared, and it was great. Yet there were still issues that occurred with malpractice within the organization itself, but there's still a lot of money that's missing from the organization for the people that be. So when looking at models, I really do like what that model was, but I want to really look at where, looking at those grassroots movements, where the issues came out and where they came up. And it seemed to be an issue once the movement got large enough. Most time people aren't able to adapt to more influx of people who are not the core of the movement, but are more people who have ideas but not coherent ideas. So I'd like to say I like the model of that movement, and I like being a part of it for a period of time, but even that movement fizzled. So I really don't know, other than turning towards and really supporting First Nations, they are the true they are truly grassroots. And the more and more we as a society can collaborate with First Nations, I believe that's more and more how grassroots are going to come through into our society.
I would like to just give a shout out to...
I got to drop off, guys.
Go ahead.
I just got to drop off, guys. It was great talking with you all, and I can't wait to work with you guys here shortly.
Aloha, Roland. Thank
Take
you.
care, Roland.
Thanks, Roland.
Good evening.
I want to give a shout out to Andrew's organization in Ashland, Oregon, Thrival Tech because it's one of the most grassroots collaboratives that I know of, pursuing a whole range of new energy technologies, and it's more or less funded by people who are in our community. It is peopled by individuals who moved to Ashland to make a go of it. And before meeting Roland, I didn't have too many other examples besides Thrival Tech of groups that are self-organizing around the opportunity that this whole movement presents. So Andrew is speaking for a group of very real and grounded full-time researchers who are also, farmers and family people and, just ordinary earthlings who at the same time have a passion for these exotic sciences and technology development. They have a full lab, they have an office, everything, and it's been in operation for years. So little think tanks and little collaboratives like that have to be developing all over the place. This cannot be an isolated example. Now, we don't have a list, right, but I would argue that there have to be hundreds of such groups around the planet. A little less grassroots is a man named Paramahamsa Tiwari in India right now, who is a colleague of mine, and he has successfully, for 20 years now, had the backing of the Indian government at the highest levels to develop unconventional energy technologies, and currently has a reactionless generator that is being utilized in utility scale wind programs in India. And this is not a free energy machine as such, it's just a hyper efficient induction generator. But nevertheless, even incremental developments like that are being picked up by governments, and I'm here basically to let you all know that this is a movement that has just begun to get its legs in terms of making a real difference for everybody. And that's, as soon as officialdom adopts a truly unconventional machine on a massive industrial scale, which is not really a grassroots endeavor, but that will spur a lot more people to have the courage to change energy paradigms. And we're just preparing ourselves for that watershed event in human history. And it's like we can see the wave coming. We're on our longboards and we're paddling and we're ready to hang 10 as soon as that wave hits, because the set is coming in.
Yeah, actually, Toby Groats, who's the electrical engineer, has been working with Tiwari, the guy in India you mentioned, is going to be speaking in 2 weeks at the meetup in San Rafael.
Is that Toby?
Toby Groats
Toby
is,
Groats.
yeah, on the 14th of May.
Great.
To talk about the details of that Tiwari reactionless generator.
He's the man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful evening. Thanks for hanging out. Aloha.